Alright guys, today we're going to talk about writing an introduction, and we're going to take it a little bit deeper than we did before. If you remember, we talked so far about introductions having three parts. They've got grabbers, focus statements, and thesis statements. And today we're going to get down into the focus statement, do a little practice, and consider what exactly that means. Just a brief review, like I said, three parts. We took a deep look at grabbers for the last lesson. We took a look at how you can have different types of grabbers to really get that reader's attention right off the bat. Now, just to introduce this, when we talk about focus statements, remember focus statements kind of do two things. They give your audience a more clear idea of your topic, and they act as a bridge between your grabber and your thesis statement. And what I like to think about when I think about these, when I think about the focus statements, I like to think about things that add things into more focus. So if you've ever been in a science class and used a microscope, or if you ever have tried to take a picture of grandma with your iPhone, you know that sometimes things are blurry. They are you can't really make out the fine details. And I'd like to think of the focus statement as something like that. It's taking that camera, it's adjusting, either holding down the autofocus or on a microscope, just focusing that lens down so you can really see the details. So that's the best way to think of that. And if you also think about the introduction as an upside down pyramid, this makes sense because things go from less specific to really specific. So the grabber right there at the top, that's not really specific, but as you move down the introduction, you get a much better idea of what that essay is about. Because of the added specificity. Alright, so let's take a look at a sample. Let's see if we can bring that into focus. The sample introduction has a grabber, it's got a focus statement, and has a thesis as well. Abraham Lincoln once said that, aside from log cutting, no activity builds character as well as after-school sports programs. Okay, that's my Abraham Lincoln voice. What? Abraham Lincoln didn't sound like that? Prove it. Okay, so there's your grabber. The focus statement brings it more into focus. It focuses that microscope. This is undeniably true as high schoolers across the country benefit from involvement in these organized activities. And then the thesis gets really specific. So extracurricular sports help build endurance, teach discipline, and build the leadership skills students need to be successful in later life. So that bit at the top, Abe Lincoln said that, prove he didn't, and that really grabs your attention. Well, if Abraham Lincoln thought that school activities builds character, it must be true. He's smart. He wrote the Gettysburg Address and stuff. Then that second statement really tells us what the topic is. Undeniably true, high schoolers benefit in involvement in organized activities. Okay, so that's cool. And then that next statement gets really specific. Well, okay, what's my essay going to be about? It's going to be the different ways they benefit. And this is the thesis, which we'll talk about later. Build endurance. It teaches discipline, and it builds leadership skills. So those three things are some of the direct benefits from after-school involvement as per the argument that this essay is trying to persuade you towards. Alright, so let's go ahead and do a little bit of practice. Today we're just going to practice on writing focus statements. We're not going to think about those grabbers. We're not going to think about the thesis. We're just going to do that middle sentence. Should be easy peasy. We'll get right through it. Alright, so this first essay that you're going to see right here where I'm going to write the focus statement, it's about class size. We worked with this example last time. Here's my lead, and I like the the second person point of view leads. Situating a character in a place. I think it's a nice way to start an essay. So check it out. You sit in the corner of the classroom, trying to peer over the multitude of students arranged in rows between you and the chalkboard. You raise your hand, but are not seen. You try to get help, but the sheer amount of students makes it impossible for your teacher to make this way around to you for assistance. Okay, so you've laid out the scenario. Now, how do you whittle that down? How do you focus that microscope down in order to really let the audience know exactly what you're talking about? Well, let's take a look at this. Let's see if we can come up with a focus statement. All right, so I'm going to argue in this essay that eventually that we need to do some things in order to eliminate these overcrowded classrooms. So I just have to establish this essay. It's about overly crowded classrooms. So I'm going to do that very simply. Overly crowded classrooms are a problem in many American high schools. Check it out. Obviously, this sentence right here would eventually be put right up here because it is part of a paragraph, but for argument's sake and just to keep things clear, we're going to keep it down here. So you can clearly see that this would be the focus statement. And then our job would be just to say, hey man, how can I, what am I really trying to argue? And that's the next video. All right, here's another example. The topic of this essay is the social differences between middle school and high school. Social difference between middle school and high school. Let's check it out. A pair of 6'4" muscle-bound giants push past you as you try to focus on the tiny numbers of your new schedule. You steady yourself on a locker, look up and watch as a small group of junior girls walk calmly to class, textbook in hand, chatting quietly about the challenges of Newton's laws. When they pass, you see your fellow freshmen. They look equally dazed. Alright, so check it out. This essay, it's about just what you see there, trying to say, listen, high school, middle school, they're a lot different. So let's see if we can't come up with a focus statement on that, because I'm going to argue that there are very discernible differences. They're very clear differences. That's what my essay is going to be about, so I need to focus it down. Okay, so here is my focus statement. It is clear that high school is a far more challenging environment than the comfortable confines of your former middle school. Okay, so there's my focus statement. And my next statement will be, some of these differences include, or some of the most challenging differences are social differences, academic expectations, and something else. That would be my thesis, but we're not going to get into that now. So there's a couple examples, so just to review what we did. We talked about the focus statement. Okay, we talked about how in an essay there are 3 parts in that introduction. There's a grabber, there's a focus statement, and a thesis statement. And we also said, hey listen, this focus statement is no different than the lens on your camera. You've got to kind of take that lens and you've got to focus it in so your topic becomes more clear. Next video, we'll just take a look at what a thesis should look like and how to write one successfully. So I hope you enjoyed this video. What I want you to do is move on right now and go ahead and do some practice. All right, take it easy.